What the motherfuck is up, juggalos and juggalettes, motherfuckos and motherfuckets, ninjas, bitches, and juggalos alike? It is Crazy McCormick here up in this motherfucking bitch here on Juggalo a Day, bitch. As you can tell, it is Monday, and we are continuing with the Season of the Pumpkin theme, with it still being October and everything. But this week's topic is going to be about horror movies. That's right, you can't have a fucking Halloween, Hallowicked, Season of the Pumpkin Samhain without fucking horror movies. And being a kid, a product of the 1980s, I have seen my fair share of fucking horror movies. From goblins to demons to horror flick franchise motherfuckers and beyond. I was born in the decade in which slasher flicks and fucking everything involving horror movies was king and prominent. So this week's topic, what's your favorite horror flick? What's your favorite horror series? What's your favorite horror franchise? And right off the bat, I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty. My favorite horror series, franchise, whatever the fuck. The Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Now, the reason why I say it's a franchise is because not only was there, 7 Nightmare movies, if you count Freddy vs. Jason, but there was also a Nightmare on Elm Street series. Now, the reason why I say this is my favorite franchise, with the movies and the TV show, and even specific like random guest spots on MTV, and even in the music video for Dream Warriors by Dokken. Freddy Krueger was the main reason. Freddy Krueger was my favorite slasher. And that's in a complete and utter era of horror movies. On top of that, mind you. Now, the reason why? It's because of one simple reason. Freddy Krueger had charisma. Freddy Krueger had personality. Something that the likes of Jason Voorhees and fucking Michael Myers and Leatherface and Pinhead all completely fucking lacked. Even, I hate to say this, but Chucky from Child's Play paled in comparison to how much charisma and personality Freddy Krueger had. Now, over the years, over the decades, I have seen movies come and go. The Friday the 13th movies have tried, they tried to reboot that, and that didn't work. But then again, a lot of the older slasher flicks have been attempted to be rebooted, and they don't look as good. Now, when I say that I am a big fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I will not include the reboot, because Rorschach playing fucking Freddy Krueger didn't look right. I watched that shit, and I seriously had to get up and walk away from the TV because of how horrible it was. But to me, I honestly feel that no horror movie franchise character really boned up to Freddy Krueger. And the reason why is because Freddy Krueger had a way of fucking with people because of his environment. And his environment being the dream world, and being in the head of these kids, feeding on their fear, knowing what their weaknesses are, and knowing how to exploit those weaknesses to murder these kids. The background story in and of itself was entertaining as well. There's very little to no background story really behind Michael Myers or fucking Jason Voorhees. Like, Jason Voorhees drowned in a fucking lake. And as a kid, mind you, apparently resurrected from the dead as a full-grown man, still with the body of a retarded mongoloid. And his intentions are to basically be the anti-hero, if you will. Because look at who he killed. Now, Freddy Krueger, on the other hand, he died getting exactly what he deserved. Murdering children, and also sexual misconduct with children. You know, Freddy Krueger was straight up fucked up from the get-go. The son of 100 maniacs. And he didn't grow up right, with violent fucking homicidal tendencies to begin with. And after years of torturing children and raping them, and, you know, doing all of that shit, he got his just desserts. But for revenge on taking his life, he came back in a different realm, in a different way, to get back at the parents for brutally murdering him and being hush-hush about it. He wanted his name out there. He wanted to be known. He wanted to know that, given everything that was going on in the real world, his name was still out there. He fed on the fear of children. And that, I thought, was wonderful. Storyline in and of itself was terrific. Now, granted, that is my favorite franchise. I still have a soft spot for one movie. Now, granted, it was a trilogy. I had never watched the 2 movies, and I have never watched the reboot. But the first movie, I still have a soft spot for, and that movie is Night of the Demons. That is one of my favorite movies, based off of the history that I have with that movie. See, back in the day, back in the early 80s, my parents had divorced. My mom was working 2 jobs, and during that period of time when I wasn't at school, I was being babysat. And my babysitter was obsessed with fucking horror movies. I remember seeing a huge crate full of blank VHS tapes that had like 2 or 3 different horror movies on each of them. Anytime a horror movie came up on HBO or Cinemax, they recorded it. They had basically a list of movies that they have accumulated over 5 years of, whatever was on fucking TV Guide. So I got to see a slew of different fucking horror movies. Whether it be the Nightmare series, the Hellraiser series, the Puppet Master series, Goblins, The Gate, Pet Sematary. Let's see, what else was there? Shit, there's so many fucking horror movies that were made in the 80s that I can barely keep up. Oh yeah, there was other crappy ones like My Mom's a Werewolf, or what would be another good one? The Monster Squad. And out of all of these movies, hither and yon, the one that really sticks out in my mind the most is Night of the Demons. Now, the reason why this is because we were watching it one night, and there's a scene in the movie where there's a girl, blonde girl, wearing a pink dress, and the top is open so her titties are exposed, and she's got this thing of lipstick, and she's like doing her lips, and then she starts going around her lips, and it's all around her eyes and down her cheeks, and she brings it down her fucking neck, down to her chest, wraps it around the titty, and then bloop, shoves the lipstick right in her fucking nipple. The nipple swallowed the lipstick. And I remember this, turning around to my babysitter and saying, "Why did she stick her lipstick in her boob?" My babysitter tried to tell me that she didn't and that it didn't happen. But her friend Jose, on the other hand, caught wind of my question and said because she didn't have a fucking pocket. And that's one of the reasons why I remember that movie. The second reason why I remember that movie is because this is one of the very fewest movies in horror that I had watched where a black guy survived in the movie. Now, you can go ahead and try to say, oh, that's racist, blah, blah, blah. But you go back and watch a whole shitload of horrible 80s movies, all of the horrible 80s slasher flicks, demon possession flicks, all of the flicks involving Satan or whatever. If somebody's getting murdered in that movie, it's a horror flick in the 80s, especially if there's a lot of fake blood. Now, you go ahead and take a look at a lot of those and try to find the ones where there's black people in them and tell me that the black guy didn't die first. Or the black guy didn't die somewhere in the middle of the fucking movie. Except for Night of the Demons. A black guy and a white girl survived at the end of this fucking movie. Now, being a big fan of horror such as myself, I am taken aback at this fact of the matter. Because back in the 80s, that always happened. A black guy always fucking died in the movie at some point or another. If it showed a black guy, guarantee you that the dude was gonna fucking die within the next 20 minutes. As fucked up as it is, that is fucking true. But it is always something that sticks out in my head, especially with Night of the Demons. White girl fucking shoves lipstick in her titty because she didn't have a pocket, and a black guy survived at the end of the movie. And that's basically what I have to say when it concerns this shit. Until next time, I'm Crazy McCormick. Tune in tomorrow for Mr. Mackinhose. He'll tell you his favorite movie, franchise, or series in the horror genre. Followed by Big Nick, Nightmare Juggalo, and of course, Miss Juggalette. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to this video and future videos. And also don't forget to go on everybody's individual channels and like them and fucking subscribe to them motherfuckers. We're all the shit. Just so you know that. Until then, I'm Crazy McCormick and I'm out this motherfucking bitch, ninjettes and ninjas alike. Deuces.